Attorney Sharifa Tharpe, and I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. Go ahead and put your questions in the comments now so that I may answer your questions. Today, I'm going to be talking about an option that you may not have thought about in the past, and that is the option of getting the T status based on the false or fraudulent promises of an employer. Now, the T status is for victims of trafficking. And I'm going to be talking about, there are different types of trafficking, but I'm going to be talking about labor trafficking today. Now, trafficking comes in different forms. Trafficking may be perpetrated by an intimate partner or an ex partner, a stranger, an acquaintance, a family member. For example, you do have what I refer to as a Cinderella type of trafficking, Cinderella type of situation, where you're brought here by a relative, by a friend, by an acquaintance, or you're lured into going maybe living with a family member, a friend, an acquaintance, maybe even an intimate partner, and you find you're like the Cinderella in the house. You have to do the cooking, the cleaning. You have to run errands for the person who you're staying with. And you feel like you have to do these things or else maybe they'll report you to ICE, or maybe they'll throw you out on the streets, or maybe they will physically assault you. That is a form of trafficking. And certainly, if you're going through something like this, get in touch with me and we can talk about the option to get immigration relief, right? And to say it's through the T status. Today, I'm going to be talking about labor trafficking in the context of an employer. An employer, this could be a small employer, it could be a large company, but the employer made a promise to you that they knew to be false, but they used that promise to lure you into working for them. And then when you are in that position, they either continue to repeat these promises, or that's when you found yourself in a situation you didn't want to be, where you were subjected to work you didn't agree to, or you felt like forced to be in that position. That can be a form of trafficking. No, the what I'm seeing lately is I am seeing a pattern. I mean, this has happened over a long period of time. Of course, it's always happened, but I'm seeing worse. I'm seeing this more frequently, where employers are desperate for labor, and what they do is they make fraudulent promises to their whoever they're recruiting, that they will, if they come and work for them, they will get them the green card, or they'll get them their working papers or their work permit. And this is very enticing for immigrants who come here, and you are trying to get a head start on life, you're trying to do the right thing, and now here's the employer who is then giving you a great option to get legal status here, and so you go with it because you may even view this employer as reputable. You may think that they have that credibility. Why would they be lying to you? And then you start to work for them, and as you work for them, they either continue to keep you working by telling you, oh, give me your passport, or I'm looking into this. They ask you for information, pretending as if they're filling out paperwork for you. Or they may straight up tell you you have to work for a period of time before they can even go ahead and file those papers for you. And that keeps you working, right? The only reason you're doing the job is because you want the green card. And the way that you have realized you need the green card is by continuing to work for the employer. But the whole thing is a ruse by the employer just to benefit from your labor. You may find that they become abusive. They may think that you have to put up with their abuses because you need that green card or you need them. And so they may have you there. And in addition to you doing hard labor for them, long hours, you're underpaid, they are also abusing you, maybe verbally, sometimes physically. And sometimes they may be even threatening you, saying they have certain ties, they have links to law enforcement or ICE. So if you stop working for them, they can report you. All of this counts, all of these behaviors against you counts here for the T status as a victim of trafficking. And so if you've been through a situation like this, give me a call, schedule your appointment, and we can go through this. Let's talk about the benefits of the T status. After we've determined that you qualify as a victim of labor trafficking, and as I said before, if you have found yourself in other situations, whether with an intimate partner, whether with an acquaintance, whether with a relative, and you felt forced into that situation, you felt like you had to stay there and give in to the control of this intimate partner, this relative, this acquaintance, that can also count as trafficking. But we would need to still evaluate your facts to decide whether it fits within the T status criteria. However, it is an option, and I have gotten an approval based on just the fact that someone lured them here and then forced them to do what they wanted to do. And this was an intimate partner. So there are different situations here. But in the context of labor trafficking, if you are subject to an employer who has promised you falsely that they are going to get you the work permit or they're going to get you your status here, and are starting to realize this is false, one hunch here, one hint I'm going to give you is if you are working for them already and they're still promising you that they're going to get you the green card and you don't have status here, that's the first hint that that is false and that they are either misleading you or they themselves have made an empty promise that they have no clue what they're doing. And that's where you schedule a consultation to figure out your rights. You can call the number at the bottom of the screen, or you can go to the link in the profile or link in the description of the video to schedule your own appointment. Scheduling coordinators are available. Now, what are the benefits of the T status? The T status allows you to gain status here for the next 4 years, and then you get your work permit, you get access to benefits that will enable you to be settled here. Your spouse and your children can get the status along with you. And if you're under 21, not only you, but your parents and your sibling under 18 and unmarried can also get status. So this extends not only to you, but to your family members. And this is also a path to permanent residence. So after 3 years of being on the T status, you can apply for permanent residence. However, there are also ways to apply early for permanent residence. So even before the 3 years. Give me a call. Let's talk about your options here and get started. I know if you've been here, especially if you've been here without status, that you've been through a lot. I know that you've been through a lot, and so you have a story to tell here. You can call me, schedule an appointment. We can talk about what you've been through to determine whether you qualify for the T status, right? Because I know many of you have gone through situations like this and you think there's no way to fix your situation based on that. You think it's a lost cause, but I'm telling you now that it is not. It could be a path to gain status here and permanent residence. All right, so go ahead, put your questions in the comments now. I'm also here to answer your questions. So put your questions in the comments now so I can answer. I'm scrolling through to see those questions. Okay, so I'm in need of your service for a different reason. Go ahead, give us a call and we can talk about what's going on with you. Thanks for the love, by the way. Your questions can be anything that's immigration related. So put your questions in the comments and then we'll go and talk. Hi there, it's nice to see you. Kibro. How long does it take for a US citizen to file for a spouse in Gambia? So right now, even though it differs from embassy to embassy, on average, I'm seeing the process taking about 2 years. So it is a little longer if your spouse is outside of the United States. And it also depends on the circumstances in the country. If there is, if there is any kind of instability in the country or conflicts in the country, that can cause even further delay at the embassy. But on average, I'm seeing about 2 years for the entire process to move forward. Good day. Is it okay for someone to call the embassy to find out what's taking so long for an appointment date for a permanent resident? So I don't know your case and I can't give you particular legal advice. Um, However, you can always check in whichever agency has your documentation. You can always check in with them to make sure that they have everything they need to make a decision. Now, if you call to find out what's taking so long, they're probably going to explain to you that you have your turn in line and you just have to wait for your turn. But that can be a good opportunity to just make sure that everything is on track and there's nothing needed from you to finish the process. If you're a girl and marry a girl, can you get to stay? Yes, so same-sex marriages it does count as well. So same-sex marriages is not prohibited in any way in the United States and is acceptable in terms of in regards to immigration. Keep in mind the general rule under immigration law is if the marriage is legal wherever it took place, so whatever country it took place in, as long as it is legally recognized in that country, it's going to be recognized by the immigration service. So, for example, here in the United States, same sex marriages are legal, and so it will be recognized. Now, another thing I want to get at here, though, is if you it's a same-sex marriage as the one you described here, but it's only for the purpose of immigration, that is where you're going to get into some trouble. That is not permitted. So it has to be a real marriage, has to be real marriage. You have to have an intention to live your lives together to be able to qualify for the green card. So it's not necessarily who you marry that's the issue. It's why did you get married? If it's only for immigration purposes, then that's where it's not permitted. All right. Go ahead. Keep putting those questions in the comments. Okay, so how long does the process take? So if you're in the United States, you're looking at about 5 months, a little over a year if you're doing adjustment of status. As a married couple, if one of the spouses is outside of the United States, then you're looking at up to a 2 year process right now. All right, keep putting those questions in the comments. I am here to answer your questions. In the meantime, while I'm waiting for your questions to come in, I'm going to go ahead and tell you how to get in touch with me. And it's really easy. We have so many different ways. Now, if you go to the link in the pro on Instagram, that link will take you to a page, Linktree, with different links. You have a link to schedule your own appointment. You have a link where you can go to the website. You can learn more about me and my services. You can do online chat. You can do an online contact form as well. And you can schedule your own appointment on that website. Now, if you are if you are um, if you call the office, you'll also be able to speak to a scheduling coordinator who will be more than happy to assist you as well. I'm in the USA on a work program. Can I apply for a green card? So it depends on what kind of work program you're on. If you're on, say, an H-2B, there's no direct jump from H-2B to a green card. However, if you're here on status and your circumstances change to allow you to qualify through a family member, through a spouse, through employment, if the employer now wants to switch to a permanent resident process, then that's a possibility. But timing is going to be everything here. And the length of time it takes for you to have an immigrant visa number is going to determine whether you can stay here or whether you have to go back to your country and wait out the process there. Okay, so the process is short, which is good. So why is it longer when you marry a man? So I think you're misunderstanding understanding here, Sata girl. There is no, they don't distinguish between marriages, same-sex marriages, and then marriages between a man and a woman. They do not distinguish. A marriage is a marriage under immigration law. So they're not putting same-sex marriages aside and saying, okay, let's process this one at this rate and let's process this. All of them are taking 5 months to over a year to process. Now, one observation that I have made as an attorney is that when it comes on to doing the marriage based process or any process on your own, it tends, especially when you don't have an attorney, it tends to be longer because maybe the application is not done thoroughly. It's not all the information is presented properly, and so that to a delay in processing of the application. And so you might find that your process it goes on for a year and a half to 2 years because maybe on the immigration side it's taking them a longer time to review the application. So that's one observation I've made whenever people say, well, my process is taking so long. On average, for marriage based processes, based on my experience and my cases, I've seen 5 months to over a little over a year to complete the entire process from filing to green card. But they don't distinguish between is this a same sex marriage versus a marriage between a man and a woman. All right. Keep putting those questions in the comments. I'm here to answer your questions. Now, your question does not have to be related to the topic that I'm talking about today. So go ahead and make sure you put any immigration related questions in the comments that you would like to. Now, I'm here for those of you. Hi there, Believer Scrum. Thank you so much. I appreciate it and I appreciate your support. Now, for those of you who are new to the live, I just want to let you know that usually I'm here from Mondays to Fridays at around lunchtime, so between 12 and 1 to talk about different topics, but also to answer your immigration related questions. So you are free to put anything you want to in the comments. Now, if you want particular legal advice, because the information I'm giving you is general information, that's where you need to go ahead and schedule that appointment so we can evaluate your facts and then determine how best to move forward in your particular matter. The way you're going to do that is you're going to go ahead and go to the link in the profile or the link in the description of the video. Click on that link, and you will see a number of options available to schedule your own appointment, or go to the website where you'll see the phone number, you'll see the contact form, you will see the online chat as well during office hours. All of those lead to the scheduling coordinators, who will be more than happy to assist you to schedule your appointment if that's what you need. Now, what if your husband refuses to submit the paperwork? We need to talk. If your husband is refusing to file the paperwork, that's usually the first red flag for me that something larger is going on. Which spouse that has your best interest in mind is not going to file paperwork to make sure that you're safe, you're secure, you have your legal status here? Which spouse is going to do that? So that is usually, that's the first red flag that I see, that this spouse is not treating you well, right? That they have a motive behind refusing to submit your paperwork. That motive may be to control you, maybe to prevent you from empowering yourself here in the United States. And they know if you get your papers, you will be empowered to work. You'll be empowered to maybe have get your children to be here with you. It maybe be empowered to leave them, or to leave a bad situation if they're mistreating you. And so I would say let's talk about why that's the case and get started on a separate process that's your own. And that's through VAWA. So you'll hear me talk about VAWA very often. If Now, with VAWA, you get to apply for your own work permit, your own green card, without this spouse who is refusing to file your paperwork and mistreating you. And usually it's intertwined, right? Where they are refusing to submit the paperwork because they are mistreating you, right? So or it's a part of the mistreatment. So let's talk about that. You can schedule a consultation, and I'd love to talk to you to evaluate your options as soon as possible. Because as soon as we realize, we confirm that you qualify, we get started on the paperwork to get you your legal status. So you don't have to be looking over your shoulder. You don't have to fear what's going to be happening to you. And this is completely confidential. If you don't say to your spouse, which I highly encourage you don't, your spouse or the person who's mistreating you, where you're applying for VAWA, will never know that you've applied for this. This is confidential, and your privacy, your information is protected throughout the whole process. So this is your process. Okay, so say you marry and your husband and he decide to not come to the interview. Can you go alone to that interview, and will you get the green card still? Great question. It's unlikely. Now, if you go to the interview and he refuses to go with you, they are going to determine that this is a sign that the marriage wasn't real. This more than likely than not that they're going to come to that conclusion. And now, if you go, and they may give you a chance, they may reschedule the appointment, or they may straight up send you a denial or a notice of intent to deny. So it's more likely than not that they will go ahead and deny that application. If your spouse is refusing, it's the same as the spouse that's refusing to file the paperwork, right? Is if they are refusing to go to the interview with you, it usually means that they are mistreating you. That's the first red flag, to me, uh, that you are not being treated well, that you're being subjected to extreme cruelty and mistreatment. And so should talk. Go ahead, schedule that appointment. Let's talk about the facts here and determine whether maybe applying for your own green card without that spouse is going to be the best option for you. And now it's All right. Looks like we back. Okay, so if you get denied, I'm sorry about that. I got disconnected. I hope you're all still here and you're all hearing me. Now, if you get denied, if you go to that interview and get denied, it means that you can then have a more complex case. Doesn't mean that you can't apply for VAWA, but it means that you're going to have a more complex case. Now, if you go ahead and learn about the VAWA, see if you qualify, and you switch your current application to a VAWA, it avoids that complication there, because before you get to the interview, before you get a denial, you would have switched to your own process to remove the spouse and be able to move forward on your own. So I would say if you're not trusting your spouse in this process, that's where you need to talk to me, because then I can determine whether your case qualifies for VAWA and move forward there. If you don't trust your spouse, follow your gut. If you feel like that spouse is going to cause you harm, as in they're going to sabotage your process, if you have that gut feeling, then act on it and talk to me. Let's talk about those options going forward. Is a VAWA case really a 3 year processing? So I would say 2.5 to 3 years the end for the entire process. Now, from the start to the green card. So right now they do have a processing time of 3 years. But keep in mind that the range is different based on different individuals. Now, what happens is you get your work permit and your social security throughout the processing. So you don't have to wait for the 3 years to at least get your work permit and social security number to get a head start on life here while you wait for the entire process to be completed. Vicente, thanks so much. I'm glad that you're here as usual. How long after applying for VAWA can you get your work permit? About 6 months to 12 months afterwards. And then for as long as the VAWA process is moving forward, it is renewable. And it's a 2 year green card as well. I mean 2 year work permit. And then when you get your green card, it's a 10 year green card. If you're over 21 and you are in the US and your parent is a green card holder, can they still file for you? And will you have to leave the country if you overstayed? Yes, you will have to leave the country if you overstayed. If you get qualified for an I-601A waiver, you'll be here until the interview schedule. You have to go to the interview at the embassy in your country. You'd have to go to the embassy in your country. So yes, the end result is you will have to leave at some point. What documents should I bring to the interview for marriage base? So that is too specific. It's really going to depend on what your case looks like. I wouldn't want to give you a list, and then because the list I would give is too long. It's too long, and sometimes you need even more depending on the circumstances in your case. So what I would say, here's some basic general information about that. Bring a copy of your application, bring your original documents, bring additional evidence of the both marriage. Is VAWA for both males and females, and how can you prove what you're stating? Absolutely. It is for males, it's for females. And you know, it's not you with the standard, the legal standard here for approving a VAWA is not you have to prove beyond a doubt. And that's the misconception here. It is is this credible? If it's credible, then the officer can accept your statement as evidence. So your statement can be accepted as evidence. That can be the proof here. The credible proof here is your statement. So the evidence is going to differ from case to case, but your statement is going to be very important. And that's why it's important to make sure that the statement is done properly. It's not done in such a way that you just give a summary, but it has to be sufficiently detailed for the officer to determine the credibility of your statement, and that's what how they determine whether they're going to accept it as evidence. And I show financial support from spouse, example, Western Union receipts. So now, if you are outside of the country, yes, sure, the Western Union receipts could be additional evidence of the bona fide marriage. Now, keep in mind that if you're outside of the United States, by the time you get to the embassy, I mean, it's good to carry evidence, but by the time you get to the embassy, they're more looking at whether you qualify for the immigrant visa to get into the U.S. Can my daughter file for me if she's 21 and a green card holder? No. So green card holders can't sponsor their parents. Only citizens should have to become a citizen first. Should I leave Florida due to what's going on? Now, Shervon, that's a very loaded question. And it just depends on how it affects you. I spoke to someone yesterday, and she was very stressed out, very, very stressed out about the law, and I mean, to the point where she was going to lock herself in her home because she was just so afraid for not only herself but her family members, thinking being undocumented would mean her family members would be get into trouble too. It turns out nothing about the law affected her. She didn't work, so it didn't affect her. She didn't drive. It didn't affect her. She never entered the country without legal permission, so it didn't affect her. If you're here in Florida and you do work without a permit, then that is going to definitely be more concerning because the employers may terminate you. Come July 1st, you may be terminated because the employer may decide not to take on that risk to allow you to continue to work without a work permit. So in that, or if you're driving out in the state without a license or with an out of state driver's license, that's concerning. If you did come into the country without a visa, but maybe you cross the border without permission, then you have some concerns. If you're driving into Florida with family members or friends, then they could be charged. So, it just depends here on your circumstances. But I would say that right now, the law harshly penalizes employers, especially employers who have 25 or more employees. And as a result of that, you may find mass layoffs, even though the cost will be really high to do that. That may be something the employers have to look at doing because they don't want to take the risk on. And then you might find that a lot of undocumented immigrants find it harder to find work. All right. I already do my biometrics and have my driver's license. So that's good. If you have your driver's license here in Florida and it's valid, you don't have anything to worry about. If you have your work permit, if you have your driver's license already, don't worry about it. This law will not affect you. That work permit authorizes you to work. My husband and I married 2 years ago. My son is now 17 years old. Should my husband file for us before my son is 18 years old? The sooner the better, because the process can be long and you don't want your son at any point to age out. As a citizen step parent, though, he has up until he's 21 to file for the son, but the sooner the better. Don't wait. He's 18, but being 18 doesn't mean that he no longer qualifies because children under immigration law are considered under 21. So he has up until he's 21 before. After 21, it turns into a longer process, more frustrating process, and tedious, complicated process. So the sooner the better. I'd say treat it with urgency and file for the son right away so that time doesn't go by. What if you're visiting Florida undocumented? Then it could affect you. If you're driving in the state with an out of state license, it could affect you. If you came across the border without permission and you're driving into Florida with friends or family, or even just someone else driving you in, it could affect you and that person. So it's definitely, you're not safe here. And as you know, they did issue a travel advisory for Florida, regarding, the lack of safety for immigrants and, Black people. So it's unfortunate that we're going through times, but with Florida, when in doubt, just don't make the trip. So, do I have to leave Florida if I got married and waiting to put my paperwork in? If you're working on your paperwork, then I would say stick it out, and get those papers in. So, those of you, what's happening is wrong. But the reason I'm doing what I'm doing here is because those of you who have options here, look into those options, because if you have options, it means that if you really want to stay here, you really want to continue your life here, that option could help you to do that. So I can help you to evaluate whether those options are available for you to stay here. This is where the consultation is going to be very important. All right, so that's going to be it for me today. Thanks so much for your time. I'll be back tomorrow. Think up some more questions, because your questions help me to give you the information you care about. So don't hesitate to put your questions in the comments. I'll be back tomorrow at lunchtime where we'll catch up. I'll come with a topic, you come with your questions, and we can talk through them. All right. Thanks so much. You're welcome, Shervon. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one. Bye bye.